Hello everyone, this is Satish Kumar. I am here with my lesson on Indian economy. This is my continuation on the lesson on non-performing asset. So we have seen few lessons on non-performing asset where we learnt about all its details. So in this lesson we are going to continue it. So in this lesson we are going to learn about one major steps taken by government in recent times, and it is the present one, which is the insolvency and bankruptcy code. Okay, so the insolvency and bankruptcy code was brought by the government in 2016. Okay, and the main purpose of this code is to consolidate all the existing framework of the NPAs, steps taken for to resolve the NPAs. No, so far there are plenty of mechanisms, and all are not yielding any successful results. So as a result, the government decided to come up with a consolidated framework, so that a single law will be there to deal with the insolvency and bankruptcy. Of course, it is not going to entirely remove all those previous acts, but it is going to consolidate. Okay, please remember this point. And we need to know what is insolvency and what is bankruptcy. So although both these terms are generally used synonymously or interchangeably to mean a person who is failed to repay a borrowed amount. Okay, but there is a slight difference in these terms. Okay, see, bankruptcy is a legal status of an entity or a person. Okay, who have debt owed to a creditor who cannot repay. So take a company or a person, if he is taking a loan from a bank. Okay, if a company or a person is taking loan from a bank, and if he fails to repay that amount, okay, he doesn't automatically become bankrupt. In that case, he will be called as insolvent. If he fails to pay the bank, if he is not having money, and if he is not paying the repaying the borrowed amount, no, he is called as insolvent. When he will be called as bankrupt is, he will be called as bankruptcy when that person or the creditor, the person who gave the money to him, moves to a court, okay, saying that he has not paid the amount, and the court issues an order saying that this person has defaulted. Only then he will be termed as bankrupt. So it is a legal status. By only that, after giving that he is bankrupt, it should be given by the authorities, by either the judge or a tribunal. Okay, then only he become a bankrupt. So an insolvent is a person who has failed to repay the debt, but he has not yet announced bankrupt. And generally, a person who has struggling to repay the borrowed amount, no, will try to find other avenues to pay that debt and become solvent. Okay, and when all other avenues are failed for him, he will then go to a bank. Okay, he will then go to the bank. He will then go to a judiciary or a tribunal, right? And he will then file for a bankruptcy, and that organization will say he is bankrupt. Okay, that is how the bankruptcy works. So mostly the person who borrowed the money go to that institution, that judicial institution or tribunal adjudication institution. There are also times when the creditor takes him there. Okay, that is the difference between bankruptcy and insolvent. Okay, see, so a bankrupt person will always be a insolvent. Okay. So when you say someone is bankrupt, he is also insolvent. But when we say someone who is insolvent, he is not yet bankrupt. Okay. So a person who is called as insolvent may become bankrupt, but he is at present not bankrupt. Okay. So that is the difference. Please remember this difference between these two terms. Okay. So the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code came into being in 2016, and it is hailed as a very major reform to solve this problem of NPAs. So we will see what are all the features in the Insolvency Code, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So as I said earlier, the major objective of this code is to consolidate the laws relating to insolvency, to make insolvency a time bound process, that is to finish the insolvency, anything related to NPA as far as possible, as soon as possible. So to make it a time bound process, giving it some time. Okay. In fact, by this IBC code, the period for the insolvency, to resolve insolvency is given 180 days for companies and limited liabilities companies, and this could be extended up to 272 days. Okay. And this 90 days extension has some terms and condition. I will say that later. Okay. So at the maximum, they have to finish by this code the insolvency period for 270 days for companies and limited liabilities companies. In case of a startups and small companies, for startup company or a small company, the insolvency process, in fact these companies now, they are asset worth less than 1 crore. They are considered as small companies, startup companies. Okay. And other companies which are less than 1 crore. So for these companies, this process has to be, the insolvency process, the resolution should be completed within 90 days. Okay. And it could be extended up to 45 days. Okay. So 135 days at the maximum for small companies and startups, and for the large corporates and the other limited liabilities companies, for the maximum period is 270 days. So that is the major aim of this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, that is to make insolvency a time bound process. Okay. And the second major aim of this process, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, is, again this is also a major aim, that is it encourages resolution over liquidation, or it is moving from recovery to resolution. Okay. What do we mean by that? See, corporates or companies, industries are vital for an economy, for growth. Okay. So just because the company has made some NPAs, it is not what you say, liquidation of that company is not good. Okay. The company will lose, lot of people will lose the job, rather than some sort of resolution should be, resolution process should be arrived at. Okay. So that the corporate death doesn't happen, so that it will promote entrepreneurship. So this process is very important. Industries straight away not going for liquidation, rather than going for resolution. Okay. So these two aims are very important, that is time bound process to resolve the insolvency, and to look for resolution rather than liquidation of the company. Okay. So that too much of corporate debts doesn't happen. So the companies, lot of companies not need to liquidate or closed. Okay. So these two are very important. Okay. The bill also ensures that the resolution process happened properly, so that there is not any what you say, the people who will install the resolution process are provided immunity, so that the resolution claims of the creditors could be continued uninterrupted. So this is also secured by this bill. Okay. So here you have to see some of the people involved in this process. So a number of new agencies are created, and a few professionals are also involved. We need to know what are all the things created by this bill. So here are the list of people who are included here. First, there will be an insolvency professional. I will tell you where he will involved in this resolution process. First, we will know who is the insolvency professional. Okay, and these professionals they will administer the resolution process. In fact, the resolution process, I will tell how the resolution process will happen. And please remember at this point, the insolvency professionals appointed for this purpose will be taking care of the resolution process. Okay, so they will manage the assets of the debtor, okay, the borrower, and they will provide information to the creditors, for example the bank, to assist them in making them decisions how to move further. Okay, and there will also be an insolvency professional agency set up for this purpose, and this agency will be taking care of conducting examination and recruiting and certifying insolvency professionals. So the insolvency professionals they will be registered in this agency, insolvency professional agency. Okay, and the insolvency professionals are also given some code of conduct for their performance. Okay, then there is this information utilities. It is nothing but the creditors. For example, there will be a large number of creditors for the NPAs. For example, a company may have brought loan from 2-3 banks. Okay, these creditors will provide the information of the debt owed to them. Okay, and this information will be pooled in this information utilities. Okay, and all these records will be maintained here at this information utilities. This is like the commission bureau that is set up in the 2001. Okay, and there will also be a board, that is IBBI, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, which will set up, and this will oversee both all the three aspects, that is the insolvency professionals and the insolvency professional agency and the information utilities, all these three period. So the insolvency and bankruptcy board is the apex body to regulate all these people. Okay, and this board will have a membership of 10 members, and they will be represented by both the government and the RBI. Okay, then there is also this bankruptcy and insolvency adjudicators. Okay, and there are two different types of adjudicators for this purpose. Okay, one is the National Company Law Tribunal. Okay, and this will take care of the companies and limited liability partnership. Okay, then there is the Debt Recovery Tribunal, and it will look after the individual and partnership firms, that is the small companies and partnership firms. So the two agencies, two adjudicators are there. So here it will be taken. So when a borrower is defaulted, the creditor will knock this door. If the borrower is a corporate, they will go to the National Company Law Tribunal to recover. If the borrower is a small company or an individual, they will go to the Debt Recovery Tribunal. Okay, so these two organs, please remember these kind of points, all are very, very important points. Okay, so the judgment made in this, the what you say, judgment or anything made by this National Company Law Tribunal or the Debt Recovery Tribunal, no, for these appeal could be made to the respective tribunals above them. There is an appellate tribunal for debt recovery tribunal, and there is also an appellate tribunal for National Company Law Tribunal. So appeals could be made here, and further they could also make appeal to the Supreme Court. Okay, in fact, Supreme Court as involved in some matters, and as a result, some of the process of this insolvency are getting delayed. Okay, so one of the problem in India is always something will get stuck somewhere. Okay, that is why we are for 20 years are for making laws to resolve the process, and the government itself make laws that may hinder its progress. I'll tell you about it later. Okay, then another thing is here is there will be a credit committee. Okay, as I said, no, a person who has taken loan, no, borrowed loan, no, he would be borrowed at multiple outlets for 3-4 banks, okay, and 2-3 banks and in financial institutions like that. Okay, and he might have borrowed to others also. So there will be a credit committee set up which will include all the creditors, financial creditors. Okay, this is called the credit committee, that which will compose the different financial creditors. Okay, and this credit committee will approve the resolution plan by a vote. Okay, so what kind of decision to be taken regarding whether to liquidate or to some other steps, all this will be taken by this committee. So the 75% was initially given in this initial act, the first 2016 act, but this was later changed. We will see that in the amendments, but initially they gave it to 75% voting share for the financial. For example, say a person has borrowed to in 4 banks and he have defaulted to the 4 banks. Now all these 4 banks will be the part of credit committee. Okay, therefore because those 4 people has given loan. Okay, now in this 4 people who are part of the credit committee, no, among these 4, 3 person has to accept for a resolution plan that is given by NCLT or Debt Recovery Tribunal. Okay, for example, if a resolution plan is taken, 3 people should accept, that is 75%. If 4 is 100, 3% is 75, right? That is how it will be. So 3 people has to accept. So in case only 2 people are accepting and 2 people are not accepting the resolution plan, then the resolution cannot happen. Then it will go for the liquidation. Okay, so the resolution can only happen when 3 creditors accept. Otherwise, it will go to the liquidation, that is to selling and other things. Okay, and there is also offences and penalties to the people who committed the debt. Okay, for example, if they are concealed the property or defrauding the creditors, in such a cases, these corporate people will be punished up to 5 years and fine up to 1 crore. Okay, in case of the individual and startup companies or small companies, no, this will be imprisonment will be based on the evidence. So here there is no clear term, but the imprisonment will be based on evidence. And for most of these offences in the individual cases, no, and small companies, the fine will not exceed 5 lakhs. Okay, the corporate should be fine up to 1 crore. According to this case, people like Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi should have to spend minimum 5 years of jail, but they are yet to be caught. Okay. So the bill also provide how the suppose the company has gone into liquidation, that is the asset of the company who had borrowed the money is sold for liquidation, no, to repay the creditors. In that case, how the money, the liquidation money will be distributed, the proceeds of the liquidation will be distributed among the company. Here what is known as waterfall provision is used. So there will be first some people, there will be an hierarchy or a priority for certain people. Okay, how it will happen? Here the first priority is given to the insolvency resolution process cost and liquidation cost. So the people who are liquidating and the for the cost that is incurring for the liquidation, those people would be paid first. Okay. Then the liquidation proceeds will go to the secured creditors, for example banks and other people who have given loan, no, these kind of creditors who have given loan, for them the second money, the second proceeds go. Then the third priority will be the people who are working in that company, who might have not received any salary like that for some time. So for them, people, workmen, and any unpaid dues to the employees. Okay, and then they will also give to the unsecured creditors. So see, there will be people who have, if there is a company and that company is buying raw material to run that company, no, they will buy the raw material on loan for credit to that another company, but that another company would not have ask for any collateral. They would give the goods expecting that company will pay after some time, but suddenly the company has fallen this kind of situation, no. In such cases, these people who have provided raw material, no, they would have also given some credit to this company. They are called unsecured creditors. So they will get. So this is the order. First, the liquidation process cost and the liquidation professionals will get the money. Then the secured creditors will get. Then the company employees and the unsecured creditors, and the government taxes. Then the later. Then the government taxes. Okay, and any other debts owed by the company. Okay, after all this, then only the preference shareholders will get. Okay, and after the preference shareholders, the equity shareholders. So they will be the last people, the equity shareholders. Okay, see here, since the equity shareholders are put into the last category, there is one such concern here, that is, for big companies, for a lot of corporates, no, the employees provident fund or the employees pensioners fund, no, are all tagged in the equity of a companies. So giving them, so for an employees provident fund, if an employee in a company, his provident fund is put into the company's share, equity share, and he will get only when the liquidation happen at the last. His employees provident fund is what do you say, not guaranteed. So this also raised the concern in this bill. This is one of the disadvantages in this bill. Okay. So far we saw what are the things in the insolvency bill. Now we will see how the process happens, the resolution process. So the court proposes the following two steps. First, initiation. Okay, so a person has brought a loan from somebody, that is a bank, a company has borrowed from a bank. Now the resolution process might be initiated either by the debtor or the creditor when the borrower is not paying the money. Okay, even the borrower itself could go to the resolution. He may go to the NCLT or the debt recovery tribunal. Okay, and the committee, that is the committee on creditors, no, it will take the decision regarding the future outstanding owed to them. Okay, so this committee will take a decision how the process will move. whether to resolve the process or to liquidate. That is left to the committee of financial creditors. Okay. So they may choose either to revive the debt or to liquidate the assets. Okay. And if these people have not decided from 180 days from the initiation of the this process started, that is either one have gone to the NCLT, no, from that day to 180 days, if the committee of the financial creditors not decided whether to liquidate it or whether to revive the debt, no, even in such case it will automatically go to the liquidation. Okay. So they have to decide within 180 days whether to go for reviving the debt or to liquidate, resolution for either resolution or to liquidation. If they have not decided on resolution, it will automatically go towards the liquidation. Okay. And this 180 days could be increased to another 90 days only when 75% of the this committee on creditors again approving it. Okay, please remember this point. Only when 75% people approve, it could be increased for another 90 days. Okay, please remember this point. So the maximum days I said, no, it is 270 days. So the 90, that is why the committee of credit, that voting is there. Okay. And finally, if they haven't decided for any resolution, or if they have decided on liquidation, no, then it goes for the liquidation process, it goes to the insolvency professional who will look after the liquidation process. That is, he will take over the asset and he will look after to sell that, liquidate it, and then the proceeds of the liquidation will go accordingly. We have seen the distribution process, that is the waterfall provision. Okay, that is how the distribution will happen. Okay. So these are the process of in the IBC code. So it looked like all things are well in this IBC bill. In fact, that is how this bill was proposed, and it was seen as a very major change for resolving the process. But there will always be some shortcomings. So there are some shortcomings in this IBC code of 2016. First is, they did not meet the deadline. Okay. So the IBC mandates that all should be resolved within 270 days. That is the major reason, time bound process. But for this, some 12 big companies were referred for this IBC. Among them, 5 cases are still pending for more than 600 days. They are not yet resolved. Okay. And because of continuous litigation, and sometimes they are going to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is giving some order like that, no, for multiple reasons. I am not going to individual cases. Okay. So for some reasons, they are not meeting the deadline, that is, they are not resolving in 270 days. Okay. In fact, at present, in July 31, 2020, no, nearly 20,000 cases are pending in NCLT. And what is the purpose of creating a separate tribunal? Okay, 20,000 cases are pending. And you also see some 12,500 cases are pending in the case of IBC itself, based on IBC itself. There are 20,000 cases pending in NCLT, and among them 12,438 cases belong exclusively to the IBC code referred cases. Okay. Why is this happening? One of the reason is the NCLTs are not sufficient in our country. Okay, there is lack of enough NCLTs, and there is also lack of enough judges in the NCLTs. Okay. In fact, at present India only have 16 NCLTs. Okay. We need more. Okay. Then there is also not enough number of judges. In fact, at one point of time there are only 27 judges in the NCLT roster. Now the government has took steps to increase this. Okay. In fact, the 27 judges are doing the work of 60 judges. That is why lot of cases are pending. So the government took steps to increase this. So it appointed 30 new judges, and that too recently, I think in 2019 or 2020. So at present it has increased. So that is why the process are not they are not meeting the deadline, that is the 270 days. Cases are not resolving, but they are making some progress. Okay. So for example, 12 big companies are referred. See, only 5 are pending, means 7 are resolved. Okay. But still there are a lot of things to be done. Okay. And also there is the so because of this reason, no, it is seen that the IBC will also fall into the same fate that the previous reforms like SARFAESI Act, the Debt Recovery Tribunal, all were considered as very important. In the 1993, Debt Recovery Tribunal was considered a major thing, and in 2002, SARFAESI Act was considered as a major thing. So the same thing will happen to IBC, but both DRT and SARFAESI did not yield much result, and people are thinking that IBC will also face the same result. Okay. So to solve this problem, no, Parliament has repeatedly amended the IBC code. Okay, to resolve this issue. In fact, so far 5 times it has been amended. Okay, we will see the 3 important amendments. One is 2018, 2019, and we will also see the recent one, that is in the 2020 amendment by ordinance, that is after the COVID. Okay. So first in 2018, what they brought is they brought some significant changes so that the resolution process will improve. Okay. So the changes, no, this was recommended by the Insolvency Law Committee by Injit Srinivas, headed by Injit Srinivas. Please remember this point. Okay. And this IBC 2018, no, it amendment, IBC 2018 amendment, it included the creditors, that is the real estate creditors. Okay, people who have invested in home buying, no, they are also part of the financial creditors. Okay, see, in the creditors, in the people who have lent money to the companies, no, they are divided into financial creditors and operational creditors. Okay. So the financial creditors will be the secured creditors, and the operational creditors will be the unsecured creditors. So what is the problem is, the financial creditors will be the person who will be deciding, and the financial creditors will be the part of committee of creditors. But the operational creditors, they will not be part of the creditors committee. So they will not have less power, and they will also receive money later in the case of liquidation. Okay, this is the importance. So in the 2018, people who have invested in the real estate project for home buying, no, they are all included as the creditors. This was the amendment, very important. The bankruptcy. Decisions to be made, previously it was 75%, no, here it was reduced to 66% for key decisions, and for routine decisions it was even reduced to 51%. Please remember these 2 points, very important. So the committee of creditors, when voting, their decisions is reduced to 51% for routine decisions, and for key decisions 66%, so that earlier it was 75%. So getting such a huge margin is not always easy. So that may also result in unnecessary delay. So here it has reduced. Okay, and then it also promotes, it also gives people like micro and small and medium enterprises, no, to bid in the insolvency process. Okay, and it provide them some sort of immunity, so that these people also will get into this bid for this insolvency companies. Okay, it also provides that and a resolution application that is submitted to the NCLT, no, that can be withdrawn. Okay, but this withdrawal, for this withdrawal, 90% of the committee of creditors should give approval. Okay, but they could withdraw the resolution application. Okay, please remember this point. These were all the amendments in the 2018, and in 2019 they came up with the further amendment, and in this amendment they increased the time limit. One of the reason the time limit was 270, no, they increased the upper time limit to 330 days in the 2000 amendment. Please remember, initially it was 270 to the maximum limit, now it is increased to 330, so that a little bit of extra legal time will available. Okay, and it also stipulated that these home buyers who are part of the who have become part of financial creditors in the 2018, no, they have to be 10% of the home buyers in the committee of financial creditors to approve any insolvency petition, because they may be less and they may be asking for something. Okay, and for that it bought this. Okay, and the IBC amendment 2019 bill also included a clause for protecting last mile funding. What is this last mile funding? See, the corporate debtors, no, who have failed to repay the borrowing, they may take steps when their company has becoming insolvent and some liquidation process is going on. In the last process, it may try to invest some money and to try for resolution. In such cases, they are allowed. Okay, in such cases, for example, some person who is relative to that person, or some person who is having some connection to that person, no, who might try to solve this problem. Okay, in such cases, these people should not be treated as some sort of because he is associated with that person, no, as a creditor. So that these people are also given some immunity, that there won't be any proceedings against them. Okay, and they are allowed to do these things. So the last minute file funding for some resolution was also protected by this IBC Amendment Act 2019. Okay, so both these amendments try to solve the problems related to the previous the IBC code of 2016. But now we face the new problem in 2020, that is COVID, and as a result, a new problem for the corporates arrived is lot of corporate will have to be going through some extra stress than the normal time. And in this time, if some companies fall into the insolvency, no, and if all the banks are going to initiate insolvency on these corporates, no, then the industry will totally get collapse. So the government has decided to relax this process of IBC, the insolvency proceedings, the resolution process. So this was taken by the IBC Ordinance 2020. As I said earlier, no, the government itself will take some decisions to delay this process, but this is because of the situation. Okay, so the government felt that because of the COVID, that is huge amount of economic distress, the companies will be facing some problem. No, so the government said that the sections in the IBC code, which deals with initiating the process of what you say, the initiation of resolution or liquidation. No, this process to be suspended for some time, so that the companies which are defaulting during this economic distress, no, because of this unprecedented situation, they are not put into the insolvency. Okay, again, this is a valid reason, because at this point of time all companies will be having trouble, and for this reason, if every companies are put into insolvency, that will create chaos. Okay, so the government took the step to, what it said is, this is very important, please read this statement: no application for initiation of corporate insolvency resolution process of a corporate debtor shall be filed for any default arising on or after 25th March 2020 for a period of 6 months or such further period not exceeding 1 year from such date, as may be notified in this behalf. So the government said any company which is defaulting after 25th March, no, 2020, these companies should not be brought into the initiation of corporate insolvency, and this should be for at least for a minimum of 6 months period and to the maximum of 1 year period. Okay, that is what the company said by this statement. Very, very important point. Remember this point. Okay, because it felt that in a situation like that, the companies also could not pay money, then there will the government itself will find it very difficult to have the resolution people, okay, to solve this resolution process. So that the government has suspended this process for some time now. Okay, that is all about insolvency and bankruptcy code. I hope I have given you everything in, but try to know about it more, okay, so that you will be very prepared to answer any question related to this. Okay, so with this we have I finished my this non-performing asset related topics. We will see one topic related to banking, that is capital adequacy ratio and Basel norms in my next lesson, which will be also very, very important. Capital adequacy ratio and non-performance asset, which is related to banking. Okay, thank you, bye.